Richard Selzer was asked once why a surgeon would write. His answer was this: "It is not the surgeon who is God's darling. He is the victim of vanity. It is the poet who heals with his words, staunches the flow of blood, stills the rattling breath, applies poultice to the scalded flesh." Did you ask me why a surgeon writes? I think it is because I wish to be a doctor. That single sentence took him 30 years of surgery to earn. And it contains more truth about writing, about what writing actually is, and what it's actually for, than most books about craft will ever give you. I'm going to make a case in this video for Richard Selzer as one of the most important American writers of the 20th century. And he's a writer most people have never heard of, whose work is almost entirely absent from YouTube, whose book, Mortal Lessons, contains some of the most precise, perhaps honest, and genuinely beautiful prose written in English in the last 50 years. I'm also going to argue that Selzer solved the problem every writer faces. And that problem is the problem of how to write about the body, about pain, about death, all without flinching and without lying. And I'm going to show you exactly how he did it. In the 1960s, while practicing as a general surgeon and teaching at the Yale School of Medicine, Richard Selzer began publishing in Harper's and Esquire. By 1985, when he retired from medicine, he was already recognized as a pioneer in the medical humanities. But none of those facts capture what made him unusual. Because what made him unusual was this: he spent every working day of his adult life doing something most people cannot imagine: cutting open human bodies, reaching inside of them, repairing what was broken, and sometimes failing. And then he went home and he wrote about it. Not clinically, not academically, with the full force of a literary imagination. He wrote, "Surgery is the one branch of medicine that is the most violent. After all, it's violent to take up a knife and cut open a person's body and rummage around with your hands." Most surgeons don't say that, because most surgeons protect themselves from that truth. Instead, Selzer walked towards it. He spent 8 years teaching himself to write. In the evenings, after operating all day. 8 years before he published a single word. That discipline, the surgeon's discipline applied to the writer's craft, is everywhere in his prose. Mortal Lessons is a collection of 19 essays. It's not a medical textbook. It's not a memoir in the conventional sense. It's a philosopher's examination, an examination of what the human body reveals about the human soul. Written by a man who had seen more human bodies from the inside than almost any writer alive. Selzer described it as being about the workings and misworkings of the human body, and also the meaning of life and death. That description is accurate and completely inadequate simultaneously. The book opens with a question. Someone asked me why a surgeon would write. Why? when the shelves are already too full? Selzer's answer, developed across 19 essays, is the argument of the entire book. And it's an argument that matters, not just for surgeons, not just for writers, but for anyone who has ever tried to make sense. Tried to make sense of what it means to live inside a body that is going to die. The question, why would a surgeon write, is actually the question, what is writing for? Selzer spends 200 pages answering it. And by the end, you'll find the answer has changed what you think writing is. Selzer's central formal innovation, the thing that makes Mortal Lessons unlike any other book in American literature, is his treatment of the human body. The treatment as text to be read rather than a machine to be repaired. Every essay in the book performs this. The essay on bone doesn't describe bone as structural support. It describes bone as the body's record. Its memory. The thing that remains when everything else is gone. The essay on the liver, one of the most unlikely subjects in literary history, becomes a meditation on the body's hidden labor, the work it does without our knowledge or consent. Selzer came to believe that where a body is wounded is where the soul is most likely to be found. By treating the body as a text, as something that carries meaning, tells stories, reveals what the person cannot say, Selzer makes surgery into an act of reading. In reading, into an act of surgery. Every scar he made was a sentence. Every incision was a line of argument. He understood this before he had the words for it. Immortal Lessons is the book where he finally found the words. The essay titled The Exact Location of the Soul begins as a joke. Selzer admits that the title was originally conceived in jest. The soul discovered under the kneecap, or in the fold of a baby's neck. By the end of the essay, the joke has become a genuine philosophical argument. That movement from irony to conviction is Selzer's signature move throughout the book. The second major essay confronts the question that Selzer's colleagues didn't want to ask. What is the moral weight of what a surgeon does? He wrote, I must confess that the priestliness of my profession has ever been impressed on me. And if the surgeon is like a poet, then the scars you have made on countless bodies are like the verses into the fashioning of which you have poured your soul. The priest analogy is precise, not decorative. A priest is given access to the most private interior of a person's life, their sins, their fears, their mortality, and is bound by an obligation of care in return. A surgeon is given access to the most private interior of a person's body, their organs, their blood, the physical machinery of their existence, and he is bound by the same obligation. What Selzer adds, that neither priests nor surgeons typically acknowledge, is that access changes the person who receives it. You cannot reach inside another human being repeatedly, not without being changed by what you find. Dr. Selzer was first criticized by his peers, criticized for revealing what he called the rites and the secrets of the Priesthood of Surgeons. He eventually came to be renowned in that same community. He broke the code of surgical silence, the professional agreement not to admit that what surgeons do is strange, intimate, violent, and sacred all at the same time. He broke it not to expose his colleagues. He broke it to tell the truth. And the truth turned out to be more beautiful than the silence. The essay, called simply The Knife, is the formal masterpiece of mortal lessons. Selzer describes the interior of a human abdomen during surgery. The perineum, pink and the gleaming and membranous, bulges into the wound. The arc of the liver shines high and on the right, like a dark sun. None of this is clinical description. It's poetry. The argument Selzer makes through the prose, through the beauty of the description, is the same argument that Cormac McCarthy was making in Blood Meridian, when he described atrocity in sublime language. That beauty and violence are not opposite. That the human body is simultaneously the most fragile and the most extraordinary thing in the known world. He wrote about the knife. I am still struck with a kind of dread that it is I in whose hand the blade travels, that my hand is its vehicle, that yet again this terrible steel-bellied thing and I have conspired for a most unnatural purpose. The word conspired is doing everything in that sentence. The surgeon and the knife are not tool and operator. They're collaborators, partners in something Selzer refused to call natural and refuses to call wrong. Selzer held a knife every working day for 30 years. He never stopped finding it strange. That sustained strangeness, the refusal to become numb to what he was doing, is the source of every sentence in the book. There are writers who describe the world as it is, and there's writers who describe the world as it should be. Selzer described the world as it actually feels, from inside a body. And that is the rarest thing in literature. Dr. Selzer paved the way for a new breed of medico-literary writers. But Selzer's contributions go way beyond medicine. The problem he solved was a problem every writer faces. How do you write about the body honestly? Most literature either aestheticizes the body, makes it beautiful and removes its mortality, or treats it as an obstacle, something the soul inhabits temporarily, before moving on to more important things. Both approaches are dishonest. Both are ways of avoiding the truth. The truth that Selzer spent his career confronting. That we are the bodies. That the flesh is not the container for the self. It is the self. He wrote, "There are no great subjects for the creative writer. There are only the singular details of a single human life." That sentence is the key to the entire book. The liver is not a lesser subject than war. Bone is not a lesser subject than love. The body, everybody, in its specific mortal particularity, is the great subject. It's the great subject because it's the only subject any of us actually have. He also wrote, "You will see at precisely what moment the writer ceases to think of his character as an instrument to be manipulated and thinks of him as someone with whom he has fallen in love, for it is always, must always be, a matter of love." Dr. Selzer loved his patients, not sentimentally. He was too honest for sentimentality. He loved them the way a good writer loves a character, with full knowledge of their mortality and full attention to their specificity. That love is what Mortal Lessons is made of, and it is why the book still matters 50 years after he wrote it. The thing that makes Dr. Selzer different from every other writer on this channel, and almost every writer will cover, Selzer wasn't writing about other people's experience. He wasn't imagining what it feels like to face death. He was in the room. He was holding the instrument. And in 1991, 15 years after he published Mortal Lessons, he found himself on the other side of the table. And what happened next, and what he wrote about, is the most important thing he ever did. In 1991, Richard Selzer contracted Legionnaire's disease. He was 63 years old. He went into a coma for 23 days. His family was told he would not survive. He survived. So the man who had written Where a Body is Wounded and Where the Soul is Most Likely to Be Found himself catastrophically wounded. And the soul was there, present, specific, irreplaceable. He wrote, "Within the jaws of my hemostat is the whole of the evil of the world. The dark concentrate itself, and I shall kill it." Dr. Selzer never stopped believing that the work mattered. The surgery, the writing, same work, same instrument, same purpose. To go into the dark place, just to see what's there, and then to come back and tell someone what you found.